Steve. Excellent. Right, thanks very much for coming along to have a look at our presentation today. So we are representing Trimble buildings in various forms. We've got Ian and Mark from Correc, who are the Trimble hardware reseller in Ireland. We've got Russ Hines from Rapid 5D, the reseller for Trimble in the UK, so selling various products including Vico software, which we'll see today, 4D and 5D cost planning. And they've got myself and Steve from Trimble UK, and we'll be showing you a bit of the 3D modelling as well. So Trimble buildings effectively trying to form an integrated solution right the way through the construction project lifecycle. So right the way from the beginning with laser scanning, through conceptual modelling into detail modelling, collaboration, asset management, project management, and then all the way around that process into Meridian Prologue, and then back out onto the construction side with the Trimble hardware. And what we're going to show you today is a live demonstration. I think we're probably only one of the few who are doing a live presentation, certainly between 3 different bits of kit. So it's quite ambitious to get it in 20 minutes, so it's not exactly going to be massively thorough, but hopefully it'll give you an idea of what we are capable of doing in the Trimble building suite. So effectively we're going to show Steve, acting as my engineer or contractor, doing some 3D modelling and detailing in Tekla. He's then going to pass some information out to Vico for the estimating and planning, which will be played by Russ as the project manager. And then we'll also pass information out to the site engineers to then carry out site set out. We're going to identify a problem on site. We'll see if we have the mat at the front, which represents a pad footing. We've got a problem on site, and we're going to pass information back into Tekla to then change the model to suit the new conditions on site, and then also the new pricing and scheduling information, cost information in Vico. So it's a nice little round trip, and hopefully it'll give you some food for thought. So without further ado, I shall hand you over to Stephen Jackson to go through the technical part first.
Okay, thanks Dave. So as Dave says, I'm the engineer, contractor, or maybe a subcontractor. What I've got here is a model with various formats. I've got a site plan on there, I've got some formwork on the side over here, some scaffolding, and of course I have my structure. And this structure here is a nice simple concrete frame. You'll see obviously it's all fully reinforced, highly detailed, construction on there, some steel piles down the bottom. Just to show you how easy it is to actually sit there and do some of these things. I'm going to insert a pad foundation, so there you go, pick a point, there's the pad foundation. I'm going to put a wall on top of there, so there you go, there's my first little wall I'm going to apply to that. And what I've got is a whole suite of components in here whereby I can go through and do the reinforcement, steel connections, you name it, all in here with very complex detailed software. But what I've got here is the favourites I set up for today's presentation. So what I'll do is I'll just reinforce the pad footing, so pick the number there. I'll show you that, you'll see it's all reinforced. I'm going to put some starter bars in, so starter bars go between pad and the footing, pad and column, sorry. I'll also reinforce this column. You can see very quickly, fill them all in there, and you can of course double click on these objects, change the reinforcement characteristics as you need them. And of course any changes come along, simply just come into here, say modify, you can drag these objects around, everything changes to suit. Very quick, very simple, very easy. What we can also do as well is come into here and maybe start to add in some embeds. So I just rotate this view around. And then I'm going to put in on this top corner, coming down here, for ease. There you go. I'll put an embed there. I can also put maybe a channel across the edge, so starting over here, spanning from this edge across, perpendicular. There you go. So I've got some casting inserts in there that might have a core maybe. What I can also do as well is I'll put a beam in. So let's put a beam in, say from here, coming out orthogonally. Let's put a casting plate on the end of there. And you'll see, highly detailed, all the bolts, all the reinforcements, everything required to sit there and make this structure. And it's all in there, can be class checked and quantified and things like that. And of course we can also go out and produce all the drawings as well. So you'll see there is a the reinforcement, the embed layouts, and of course the schedules that go with that. And we're talking about passing things to site today, and of course passing things to the estimator. What I can do is, onto this structure, I can start to insert some points to go out to the total station. So to insert a layout point, simply just go around, choose the points that you want to set out. You can of course just pass out a model, but I want these physically to be sent. So you might want to sit there out your embeds, you might want to lay out this casting plate, or sensible points back to the sides. And of course these can be all passed out to site using the layout manager. So here's the layout manager. There you go, there's the layout manager. And what we've got over here, for the beta style, is effectively a representation of what you see down here on the floor. So you'll see these are the base points. So what I can do is, using the layout manager, I can actually export these points out to the total station, to the guys in the team, and I can also use the publish to Vico button to pass this model across to the estimators and the planners. At this point I'll just hand over.
So first test of forming whether the technology works. It says bravely. Here we go. So, I've got this is Vico Office now we're looking at rather than Tekla. I've got the model Steve just published out, which is, again, Blue Peter style, we just published it this morning. I've got one version in here, and these are the ones I've got active. I get a representation of it. It's actually Steve's model down here that I'm looking at, all those pile foundations and everything else. We have multiple model formats in here. So the top one is SketchUp, I've got some Tekla in here, I've got some Revit in here, I've got some ArchiCAD. We are BIM neutral, we read from any source, any within reason anyway. That means that we can start to put together federated models from different sectors, different disciplines, and actually start to use them. Once we get the model into Vico, one of the things we can do is we can start to derive an automated quantity takeoff. So on this screen, what I'm looking at here, still got the model up on the top right. This bottom left is what we call our takeoff manager, so it's a list of all the items that have been found in the model, grouped together by their type. If I select this set of pile caps down here, you'll see they're highlighted in the model. I can right click on this, and I can isolate those. So I'm just looking at them, and if I look at the quantities that are derived automatically underneath here, I can actually pick the net bottom surface area. If I zoom in, you'll see here it's highlighted in a pinky purple colour. This gives me really powerful traceability. I can see where the numbers are coming from. I can see if something's been misquanted and painted in an extra area. It'll then recalculate the measurement. On the left-hand side, I have my structured cost data. This is following NRM1. It's nested like a 3D spreadsheet. If I just nip that up one level, what you'll see is something probably a bit more sensible. Come on. There we go. Nip it up a level, we can see, and we can start to talk about these are the pile foundations, these are the in-situ reinforced concrete pile caps. I'm going to ask you guys to remember a number for me now. 52.7 metres cube of pile cap in this job right now, as it stands today. The next thing we did inside Vico Office, we start to look at the actual planning of things. We are a location-based planning system. How am I going to deliver this job in a series of zones and phases, and how are we going to manage the assets in there? We've broken this little project up by a series of levels, and then I've broken each level up into a series of zones. It's this little foundation zone D that we're going to sort of focus on in a minute, the planning side of things. We actually integrate between the costs and the program. It's a big feature of Vico Office, so I have a line cost line program that makes it a hell of a lot easier to do things like end value analysis. We drag cost line items from this side across underneath activities. So if we look at setting out the ground beams under here, you'll see it contains some quantities and the labour and resource that's driving it. That's all been costed on the right hand side. So we're actually pretty tied in, pretty solid together here. What that then gives me, we can do Gantt chart views, although we have a line of balance flow line is what we call it, type analysis. The one I want to look at in here is the reinforcement of those pile caps. It's currently taking 2.4 days. So it's really, really accurate. It's been quantified from the model at a specific production rate. Other things I can do in here, we brought resources in, so I get resource graphs. I brought materials in, so I've got material histograms linked to time. I can do cash flow, I've got network diagrams, I can go Monte Carlo risk analysis. We can even start to do things like schedule task control charts. So this is a particular location, what activity to do, when to start and finish, and I can put actual data in here and forecast. Extremely powerful piece of scheduling system. And what the output from that is, very quickly, is we can actually define a 4D simulation, which is the pretty bit. We drag the activities into colour codes. It's very quick, it's very simple, but when I do it, it knows the model elements in a location, it knows when it starts, when it finishes, the duration, the resources, the cost, all that kind of information, which enables me to throw out something that looks very quickly, and I won't run all the way through it based upon our time constraint today, but we get a nice colour-coded model, and this is following the sequence phasing that we have across the job. It's a little bit easy to see on the pile caps, you get some nice colours, and this will build through the whole building. We can do demolition, we can do temporary works and stuff in here as well. So again, a bit pretty, but we're also using it to do things like health and safety management on the site. I'm going to stop that there, and I'm going to hand over to these guys from the site and instrument side of things, and they're going to talk to you about the setting out. So obviously we can do class detection here as well, and like the technical guys can, we can output the coordinates too. So Ian and Mark, I believe, last one.
Okay, very nice. So what we have here is a robotic toggle station, so it's a one-man operated toggle station. Steve's created a 3D model in Tekla. That full 3D model is going to be placed, as you can see in the tablet here, running Trimble Field Link. So this is taken into the field for doing setting out. So the full model taken in 3D. So it's all well and good having all this design data in 3D, but you can't set out 3D in the field, what's the point? So this will take the full 3D model in, fully layered. The robotic toggle station locks on here, so if I move the prism around, you can see it follows me around the field. Okay, so one man, very, very accurate way, always locked onto the centre of the prison, getting millimetre precision accuracies. So what we're going to do here today is we've got a pile cap. You can see in the floor here, the guys in the back probably can't see this, we've got a bit of carpet rolled out here with a design on it, which we have from Steve. So I'm going to go back and set out the first pile location, which is point number 110. So I'll hand over to Ian, who will guide me to the point.
Okay, so on this tablet, this would normally actually be sitting on that pole, so it would be a one-man operation. But for this exercise, so that you can all see it, I'm actually projecting it from here, and I'm actually using a radio link to communicate. So I'm going to go to layout and tell Mark to go and set out point 110. Now immediately, in real time, you can see where on the model you are on site. So as Mark moves it around, in real time, you get the bullseye position, and as we come within the tolerance, the bullseye will go green. We did this earlier today, and Mark wasn't very good, so I wouldn't
I'm not very good at this tonight,
That
guys.
additional pint last night.
It's not a job interview, is it? Too much Guinness.
So when I go stake, it initially tells me the horizontal tolerance and the vertical tolerance. And as you can see, there's a red cross, which means I have not set that point out within tolerance. Regardless of that, it will store where that point has been set out, so we can report back to the BIM model exactly where we've set out. So once I'm happy with that point, we can go straight on to the next point. So Mark will then move to point 104, and as you can see, in real time, we're actually locating ourselves on that BIM model. And as you can see on the screen in real time, as Mark moves it around, you just rotate it, Mark, just spin it around a bit.
Okay.
So I'm actually just going to set out point 103. There you go.
There we go, yeah. You want that one?
Now, again, you can see we've chosen a different point. You can see the tolerance, so we know we're out of tolerance. We'll accept that for now. So that's set out those 2 points. Now, if I hand over to Mark, he'll explain what's happened now on the site.
Okay, what we've done here, during the set out, we've come across an exposed pipe in the drawing here. So it's obviously an effective design. So during the set out process, we're going to measure a point and report back to the BIM model that there's an exposed pipe going through here. So when Steve gets that information, he can redesign and then send the information directly back out to the field. So what I'll do is I'm going to mark a point here in the centre of the pipe.
So on the controller, I'm now actually going to measure that point to get the coordinate. I can now start to generate a report. At the same time with the tablet, we can actually now also take a photograph. So if we can see the video now moving. So in theory, if I was on the construction site,
So we can't.
That's
yeah, sorry, I can take the photo. There we go. So I've actually taken the photograph. Now, in theory, what I would do is created the PDF file, and that would be wirelessly sent back to Steve, who would then be able to actually access that information and carry on with the redesign. So if I can hand over to Steve, we can then take it further.
Okay, so I've received that information from site now, and again, using the layout manager, I simply just read that file and of course generate those points within my model. So there's my new points down here, see the new drain, it's all been laid out with information about these points, but down there you can see them. And of course, based on that information, what I can do is I can then start to actually make the changes. So what I'll do is, click on very short on time, if I just double click on this model here, I'll just change these phases around. You'll see there is my new pipe that's being created. Yeah, so there's the problem. I need to address this. Something needs to be done to fix what's going on site. So there's a million ways you could be doing this. But for the purposes of today, what we'll do is simply say, okay, we'll move you from that location in this direction. Yeah, we'll go 2 meters that way. And what we'll do then is take the same pile, copy it back across, put in, copy it 4 meters this way. What I'll do is I'll just shorten this member down. The handles there, just drag it across to shorten it, and of course you'll see everything's being changed and updated. And what I'll do is insert myself a new footing in there, so just take those settings. I'm going to want a new one from this location across. Okay, redraw that view there, redraw this view. So you'll see there, I've addressed the situation. Of course, there's a lot more work to be done. We need to actually work out what we're going to do with this column, what we're going to do with these star bars and things. But of course, you can see I very quickly made the change. And of course, what I can do is I can now come into this model. I can now insert some new points. So I'm going to load up my CITA new. It's a nice red point, you can see the difference. Okay, and what I'm going to do is just start to come through here and say, well, here's my new footing that needs setting out. Just put some points on there. Likewise on this side. There we go. So very quickly put those points in there. That information can then again be sent out to the guys on site so they can sit and continue working. I can of course pull this information to the rest of the actual design team, and of course pass the information to the estimator, the contractor, the planners to see the impact of change for the planners.
Thanks. Heads up, Mike again.